Good evening. I'm going to call to order this meeting of the Town of Wendell Board of Commissioners and welcome all of you. We're happy to have you here with us tonight. We're going to be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Carver Elementary School student Graham Ide. Just pull that down. There you go. Graham Ide is a third grade student and an outstanding young scholar at Carver Elementary School who exemplifies perseverance, intelligence, and integrity. He's a hard-working and bright student who might be overlooked because he's quiet, but mighty in his presence and personality. He approaches challenges with a problem-solving mindset, never backing down from obstacles, but instead finding solutions with determination and creativity. His respect for others and strong character make him a role model among his peers. Whether in the classroom or beyond, he consistently demonstrates resilience and commitment to excellence. It was and will continue to be an honor to be his third grade teacher and recognize him for his achievements and the inspiring example he continues to set for those around him. My goodness, we're so happy to have you here tonight, Graham. Happy to have you and proud of you for all your hard work at school. All right, Graham's going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Graham. Our invocation tonight from the Calvary Faith Center, we're going to hear from Dennis Calhoun. Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for being with us tonight.
Oh, it's good to be here. It's an opportunity that we have that I'm pleased to do, and like to share our Lenten and Easter events, if you don't mind.
Absolutely, go ahead.
So Easter is late in the year this year, so March 5th is actually Ash Wednesday, and we will be hosting a series of events from Wednesday, March 5th, all the way through our Easter sunrise service at the Town Square on April 20th. So we'll have a series of Wednesday Lenten lunches. They will be at the Wendell United Methodist Church, and we'll be hosting Lenten lunches every Wednesday at 12, from 12 to 1 at the Wendell United Methodist Church, and there'll be various churches that are actually hosting, leading the devotion and things like that. So encourage anyone who is interested to attend those Wednesday Lenten lunches. And then during Holy Week, we'll be having lunches as well throughout the entire week at Wendell Christian Church, and then climaxing, obviously, in our sunrise service on Easter Sunday morning. So really looking forward to that, those events. So thank you. If we could pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us here this evening. Father, thank you for the leadership that you have raised up in the town of Wendell. We ask this evening, as we go forward with the business, that you will give wisdom and guidance and direct, all things. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you. Are there any adjustments to the agenda? Do you have a motion to approve?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll move to our public comment period. The public may participate in public comment by signing up on the night of the meeting at the podium by the boardroom door, and you have 3 minutes to speak, or by submitting written statements via email to the town clerk by Friday before the Monday night meeting at 5 p.m., by Friday at 5. Please include your name and address for the record so we'll know which agenda item and the information about what agenda item you're interested in. And that will be read into the record for a length of 3 minutes. We have one person signed up tonight, Roger Peterson. Good evening. Let me have your name
Good
and
evening.
address.
Roger Peterson, 4490 Wendell Boulevard, Wendell. Madam Mayor, Commissioners, come here tonight to say thank you on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce, where I'm honored to serve as the Executive Director. We appreciate your support and the town's support and town staff support of our annual banquet in January. I think it was a great event. We were very pleased with it. A great opportunity to recognize and celebrate a lot of things the Chamber and our members accomplished in 2024 to benefit certainly the business community, but I also believe the town, the residents, and the visitors to Wendell. And we look forward to doing even more of that in 2025. We were certainly honored to recognize 3 of our businesses and 3 individuals working in town for their amazing contributions, and certainly we're honored to once again have you present the Mayor's Award, a very special and powerful presentation this year. So thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you. The Chamber banquet was just lovely, and thank you for hosting us for that, the Mayor's Award. I appreciate it. All right, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Let's move into section 4, recognitions, reports, and presentations. And item 4A, if Ms. Huggins can come up, this is recognition of Carver Elementary School teacher, Ms. Morgan Huggins. And here's what I received on her behalf. I consider myself very fortunate to have been able to hire Ms. Morgan Huggins as a 3rd grade teacher when I began my principalship at Carver Elementary in 2021. At that time, Ms. Huggins was an educator in Denver, Colorado, and looking to relocate in Wake County. I remember our conversations vividly as Ms. Huggins sought out the best fit for her. She wanted to make certain that I was committed to doing the work of making sure all students were given opportunities to excel at high levels. You could feel and understand her passion for the work, even though it was through the phone. Although Ms. Huggins was a veteran teacher and a teacher leader, she had not taught 3rd grade before, a new challenge she readily embraced at Carver Elementary School. Ms. Huggins quickly excelled in her new role as a 3rd grade teacher and soon made a significant impact throughout the school as grade chair and as a member of both the leadership team and the equity team. But what is most incredible about Ms. Huggins is the way she builds community in her classroom, which supports the learning of all students. She has high expectations for each of her students, and in turn, they have high expectations for themselves and their classmates. She has a warm, inviting classroom environment where students are actively engaged in the learning process. Ms. Huggins intentionally provides students with opportunities for deeper learning through her instructional delivery. She empowers students to embrace difficulties, push through uncertainty, and persevere. Rather than simply providing answers, she asks thoughtful questions that foster a growth mindset in students. She instills critical thinking skills that will benefit students far beyond the classroom. Ms. Huggins shapes future leaders, problem solvers, and innovators. It is a joy to be in Ms. Huggins' classroom, and often visitors from our district don't want to leave her room. She is an enthusiastic teacher whose style of teaching truly makes each child believe they can and will. She makes learning exciting, enjoyable, and authentic for each of her students. And it is because of her efforts to see all of her students, it is because of her efforts to see all of her students reach their potential reach their full potential, that this year she earned the district and state bonuses for student growth in reading, a recognition given to only the top 25% of our teachers. In addition, 71% of Ms. Huggins' students passed the math EOG last year, which exceeded district and state averages. This is truly a testament to her hard work, willingness to learn and grow, and her belief that all students possess strengths that are uniquely and are uniquely capable of great things. Here's what some of Ms. Huggins' colleagues had to say about this extraordinary teacher. Ms. Huggins is an outstanding teacher who builds relationships with her students and engages them with learning and exciting demeanor. She's always looking for ways to move learning forward with her students. Ms. Huggins builds great relationships with her students and always goes above and beyond to differentiate to meet the needs of all of her students. Ms. Huggins, excuse me, is a natural leader and mentor to beginning teachers on her third grade team. Ms. Huggins is a problem solver, and she helps solve problems with student-centered solutions. Ms. Huggins is a phenomenal educator who truly makes a difference in the lives of her students. Her passion for teaching and dedication to fostering a positive and engaging learning environment inspire both her peers and students alike. Ms. Huggins, it is with great pride that your principal, Ms. Merritt, and assistant principal, Ms. Krause, recognize you today. You are a model for others to follow and a valued member of the Carver team. Well, I've never received one quite like that. And I'm just so proud to have you in Wendell. The first time I read it, I just smiled the whole time. I'm so pleased, and we wanted to have you here, and thank you for everything you do for our children in Wendell. So thank you for that.
Thank you. That was so special. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And I just want to say, I'm a product of Wake County, so this is a full circle moment for me. I grew up in Raleigh, and now I'm a teacher back here, so this is an honor. Thank you all for taking time to recognize us today.
Well, you're very welcome, very deserving.
Thank you.
All right, let's move into our public hearings. We have one. Item 5A is a public hearing for a non-contiguous annexation for .46 acres. PIN number 179349274, located at 1079 Morphus Bridge Road. Mr. Coates.
Yep, good evening, Mayor and board members. This is your only public hearing tonight. It's for a non-contiguous annexation, as the mayor mentioned, of .46 acres located at 1079 Morphus Bridge Road. The property owners have submitted an annexation request for the half acre. The applicants are requesting annexation to connect to city water since the well on the property has failed. They had been working with Wake County Environmental Services, and there is an existing water line in the street to connect to. The property is in our ETJ. There's not a rezoning attached with this. The property is zoned RA and allows for the single-family home. You can see the information map. This site, the property is just east of Harper's Glen neighborhood in the Pleasant Grove community on Morphus Bridge. And as I mentioned, there's an existing water line for access. And once in our city limits, they will be eligible for town services, including waste and recycling services, park programs, and Wendell Police Response. And I can field any questions you have on the annexation.
Okay, so open the public hearing. Any questions from the board? Would the applicant like to be heard?
I don't believe the applicant's here.
Okay, all right. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak in favor or against the annexation? All right, anything else from the board? All right, close the public hearing.
Madam Mayor, I move we approve the non-contiguous annexation request and adopt the attached ordinance.
All right, we have a motion to approve the non-contiguous annexation request and adopt the attached motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? The attached ordinance, I'm sorry. Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. We'll move into our administrative items. Item 6A is a downtown streetscape presentation. Mr. Coates?
Switching out my folders. Good evening again, Mayor and board members. Excited to be before you tonight for this downtown streetscape presentation. This has been a project, about a year-long process. I think we saw all of you out at community events where we were surveying, getting input from residents, business owners, and visitors. So just to go over a few key highlights before I introduce the Withers team that's here, they'll do the bulk of the presentation. The town did an RFQ for design services back in the fall of 2023 to design what the downtown streetscape master plan would look like. Withers Ravenel was selected and a contract was approved in January of '24. The study area did include the area between 4th and 2nd Streets and Cypress and Pine on the east and west side, including Main Street. The design process has taken about a year-long process. We did a lot of community engagement. We'll go over some of that in our slides. This process did include full streetscape redesign, including new sidewalks, tree planters, street lights, street design, site furnishings, public art, seating areas, and all within ADA compliance. This project was really spearheaded by the need of our ADA compliance. The downtown streetscape has not been touched in really decades. We did, with our consultants, conduct a series of engagement events through in-person events, online surveys, and presentation to boards. The downtown streetscape master plan did include a parking study for the immediate area, as well as we added a signal warrant study for the intersection of Main and 3rd Street throughout this. So we'll go over those highlights, but excited to be here. Daniel Watley with Withers is going to come up. He's a landscape architect who kind of was our leader during this process from the Withers team. And so he and I will answer questions you have after presentation, but it's exciting. Looking forward to moving this project forward. We are tonight just doing the presentation and want your feedback, and then we'll bring back the full master plan with any feedback we've heard. We did, just to go over, we did present this to the planning board last week and Downtown Development Commission the week before. So.
Thank you, Brian. Ms. Mayor and Board, thank you for having us tonight. I do want to just say that we, this past year, have really enjoyed working on this project. It's been a really just wonderful experience with working with staff as well as the public through that community engagement input. So thank you again for the opportunity for us to have worked on this. So what we're talking about tonight is the downtown streetscape. I'd like to start by defining the word streetscape because I'm not sure if it's actually in the dictionary or not, but it's really talking about all that space between the buildings, the road, the sidewalks, where parked cars are going. The streetscape itself is much more than just a road for vehicles to go up and down. It's a place where people belong, where businesses should be able to thrive, and small businesses should be able to build a platform of wealth, and a community is created. And so that's what a true street is in a downtown, and that's what that's what's there today, but we're trying to really maintain that and design for the future and what that can become. The study area that was part of the original RFQ is indicated on the left, and so as Brian mentioned, it's a core block that, you know, we're calling it the downtown core. With that being said, we've been very mindful about everything that we're designing and everything that we're hearing from a public input perspective could be scalable and expanded outside of that red dash line. And so, contractually, that's what our focus has been, but we're providing design concepts that can really be branched out by the town, implemented all over the downtown district that's identified in the comprehensive plan, which is a much larger area, of course. And so that's been a big part of what we've been doing, is really thinking about the greater whole of downtown and not just this little area. But we did include a topographical survey with SUE, so we're identifying what kind of utilities are there. We're identifying real data in the form of topography, building elevations, things like that, which is actually really nice to have at this stage in the design phase. So oftentimes we do these master plans using just GIS maps. We don't have all the data that was available this time because the town was committed to spending a little extra on the front end for that topographical survey, which has been really helpful. Additionally, the engineered parking study that was performed by a traffic engineer, a sub-consultant of ours who specializes in that, it includes a whole lot of really boring counting of cars for long periods of time. They use drones, just in-person counting, all kinds of different methods. and got a lot of really great data to help inform what we're proposing on this project. They also, as part of that, they use modeling software to forecast future growth and make recommendations for future parking needs. So really useful report that came out of this project from that traffic engineer as well. And then we really went into the stakeholder engagement, multiple forms of public input that were performed both in person and online with surveys, activities at public events where people could have hands-on exposure to kind of designing their own streetscape. So we tried to really make that interactive and also really tried to make sure we took our time with it and were able to speak with all relevant groups who might be using this downtown in the future. And lastly, we're providing a series of illustrations and graphics, some of which you'll see tonight, and a final master plan, which will be, part of it will be a nice big colored illustrative plan, we call it, but also schematic design drawings, which are moving more towards a construction type document using the survey that we have. So that's going to be some black and white scaled CAD drawings that are also part of our contract to provide, and those will allow the town to go find really accurate cost estimates and seamlessly move into a construction document phase as a next step. So one thing, like I mentioned, we're trying to design for outside of our study area. And so this is just an example of some typical street sections that we've developed and where they might apply outside of the red dashed line that was on the previous slide. And so, for example, the neighborhood local street, this is really just identifying the traditional neighborhood that surrounds downtown and simple, low cost, add parking, street trees, sidewalks. Those are kind of the minimum standards that we're applying to a streetscape anywhere in the downtown area. Definitely want to make sure we have a continuous network of ADA compliant sidewalks, for example. And then as we move into thoroughfare type roads, we have other street sections such as the multimodal street, which is what we see 3rd Street really continuing from east to west, providing sidewalks, bike lanes. It's a nice healthy right-of-way that can fit a lot of these things, which is great. A lot of towns don't have that much right-of-way to work with. And so the multimodal street's really meant to be that street that anybody can use safely to get to downtown, but if they need to get through, they get through downtown without clogging up traffic and things like that. And so part of what our traffic engineer also assisted with was basically studying all these street typologies we've created to make sure they're going to be compliant and highly functional for the town. And so we're coming at it from 2 different design specialties to make sure that we're checking each other's boxes. So these are just some examples of types of streets that could be expanded outward. You also notice that the angled parking street, which is probably very familiar to what's in downtown today on Main and Depot and Campen Streets, for example. We also did some research, just checking our boxes on due diligence and studying previously adopted documents to make sure that what we're doing here is helping take next steps that were laid out in previous studies, the big one being Blueprint Wendell 2030. And so in that comprehensive plan, it identifies the need for a downtown district and the growth in downtown and how that should urbanize and grow while maintaining its charm that it has today. And so a lot of what we've done with the streetscape, which is a big part of that downtown district, is really making sure that we're fulfilling what the comp plan illustrated here and also described in further detail. We also looked at the pedestrian master plan, a little older, but that's 2017, by the way, a little typo. Obviously, 27 is something we're all looking forward to. But the pedestrian master plan we considered highly relevant too, of course, because a lot of what we're doing is talking about sidewalks and how people can share the streets with vehicles. And so those were the main documents that we studied from a planning perspective. Speaking of public engagement, this is a bullet list of the main things that we did, which include in-person events, some more general public targeted, others more targeted towards specifically business owners, for example. And then the online surveys were provided online, but also in print format for example, at the senior center, just to make sure everybody had opportunity to fill those out. And we were really happy with just a quantity of responses we received. especially the 341 on the second one. I mean, that's a really high amount of responses compared to what we see in other towns that we've done this in. So it's great to get that much response. These are some of those examples of hands-on activities. You know, this is a build your own streetscape puzzle where you have a limited amount of width and you have to choose what you want to fit into that width. And it's a great way to show general public that, hey, not everything can fit necessarily. We have to prioritize and decide what's most important for us. And so we had a bunch of these that people built. We took pictures of them, kind of went back and looked at them afterwards just to see what was most popular. And it's also a great way to get kids and other folks involved who might not otherwise be that interested in something like this. When you're at a food truck rodeo, sometimes it's hard to make your tent stand out, right? Especially if you're the streetscape tent. So, you know, we try to attract people in any way we can. This is from some of the online feedback. Those word clouds you see, that, you know, those are generated by a software. It's taking the most common responses and sizing the word based off of how many responses there were. So this is just a few representations of what that software provided. And the summary here is outdoor restaurants, outdoor spaces, parking, those two things together were really the most popular comments that came from those early surveys. And the first round of surveys were really before we had designed anything. We just wanted to hear from people what they felt was important. The word yes is also really big for some reason. I think the software was just in a really good mood that day, or, you know, there was a yes/no question that had a lot of yeses. So we like to look at the more specific words to really help guide us. And you see on that one, you know, almost 230 comments, which is great. This is just another summary word cloud, again, showing the key points that we took from public input. You know, outdoor seating. More generally speaking, we took that to mean more things to do. You know, like give me a reason to come downtown, give me a reason to stay downtown, and make it easy for me to come downtown. You know, parking, give me somewhere to ditch my car so I can experience downtown on foot and just spend more time there. So that's a lot of what we've been trying to do with the design ideas we're presenting. And so the big tension with any streetscape design is the balance of people and cars. You know, the machines and the humans. We have to coexist. We rely on each other. How do we do it safely and in a balanced way? And so the first thing we focused on was how we design for people. And that's really thinking about the sidewalks, the crosswalks, traffic calming, how we make downtown feel safe for parents with little kids. You know, you don't want cars raging by at high speeds. You want to make a really safe environment where cars are clearly feeling that they're entering a different type of space and driving slower. And we want to give folks a reason to walk, meaning we want to give people a reason to explore downtown and spend more time there. And so, you know, a popular book in the urban design field anyway is a book by Jeff Speck called The Walkable City. And these are just the main points he makes about like what will motivate somebody to go on a long walk through a downtown setting is you have to really check all of these boxes, safe, comfortable, interesting, and give them reasons, you know, businesses, things to do, social opportunities, live, work, play is something we're really trying to create here. And so on the other, one other thing about walkability we thought was interesting. This is simply a distance comparison between if you were to go to Target in Nightdale and just run through Target, pick up a few things, or if you were to go downtown and do a loop through the main downtown core study area that we showed earlier. And it's simply meant to show that if you park outside of downtown, kind of on 2nd Street in this case, it's the same distance as if you go to Target and park midway in the parking lot. And so people are used to walking to go to things. They just may not really even realize it because they're driving for maybe 15 minutes first to get to that Target. And yeah, I know there's the whole curbside thing now, but still, lots of folks like to go in, right? Yeah, I mean, you can see in that picture how many they have striped off, but that's just the trend we see now. Interesting comparison, though, we thought. And so on the other side of the coin, how do we design for people? In summary, or for vehicles, in summary, the main things that we've done is we've maintained two-way streets. So we had some options that were presented for one-way. The main reason why we didn't go with that option anywhere is because of modern fire codes. If you go with a one-way street, it still has to be so wide to meet fire access requirements that you might as well make it two-way, honestly. But on-street parking, public parking, and two-way streets is the main things that we were doing to try to accommodate for vehicles to come downtown, stay downtown, whether you're visiting, whether you work there every day, trying to provide ample parking and circulation for vehicles. Wayfinding, two-way streets is great for wayfinding too. You don't have to remember which street, in a one-way grid to turn on next. So the core street typologies within the main study area are these three. And so previously, we showed others that could be scaled out into the neighborhoods. But the key streets that are in the downtown core include the multimodal street, which is meant for vehicles, multimodal bikes, golf carts, pedestrians to easily and safely traverse to and from downtown. The downtown thoroughfares are meant to really be the streets that allow a lot of parking, allow a lot of circulation for pedestrians, and just function as basic downtown streets. And then the festival streets are meant to be truly flexible spaces. They're a wider area of pavement that can provide a lot of parking, but also can provide festivals when closed off. For example, Campin' Row, East Campin', how it functions today. There's a lot more opportunity for that in downtown. And what we're really trying to do with everything is create something that's flexible and can just evolve seamlessly into the future without a lot of reconstruction or redesign. And all of these will be able to do that. So the parking study, a little more detail. This just shows the study area. This study area is a little bit different than our design study area. That's simply because we wanted to capture a couple of town-owned lots that are surface parking lots on the northwest and northeast corners of our study area. They also went ahead and captured the site immediately east of Perry's, just to kind of see where, because there's a lawn there that y'all know people park in. And so they just wanted to make sure they were counting any parking space, even if it was just being used for parking, but it may not really be a parking space, just to get all that data. And so that's what their study area included. And this shows on the left is a summary of before and after rough numbers, because again, some of these parking areas we're talking about are gravel lots that don't have striping, so it's hard to count exact spaces. But we're providing in the downtown master plan that we're going to present almost 200 new parking spaces from what's there today. Those are in different concentrations in some instances, but net increase of almost 200. And some of that is coming from that off-street parking, which the town procured in those corners, which is indicated in the yellow boxes you see in that map. Then the chart on the right is from the traffic report, and it's demonstrating the parking counts from those days that they counted. One of those days was the food truck rodeo, so we wanted to count on a day that we knew it was going to be essentially at or over max capacity, and so that's event Saturday. That's what the dark blue line is. Whereas the light green is a typical Tuesday, for example, and that was a 12-hour window that they were counting. So essentially, morning, during the day, and into the evening was their window you see. Or actually, I think it was even more than 12 hours. That's why we hire ourselves to do that kind of stuff. We've done it before, but, it's grueling. Interesting data, though. The other, Davenport's the traffic engineer. The other thing they helped us with was the stop warrant analysis, which is a really fancy engineering term for can we get rid of the traffic light and make it a stop sign, which they demonstrated clearly we can. And so by taking the intersection of 3rd Street and Main Street and making it a 4-way stop, there's a lot of benefits as long as you're not slowing down traffic, which they demonstrated we aren't. And so it's much safer for pedestrians, it's much safer for cars. Pretty obviously why you're eliminating that green light or that yellow light where people like to really squeeze the lemon and gun it through the intersection, and that's really dangerous for anybody on the sidewalk. That simply doesn't happen with 4-way stops unless somebody just wants to blow the stop sign. We have 4-way stops on every other intersection around us, and so people are already used to that cadence as they're coming through downtown. It also eliminates the need for dedicated turn lanes, and so that's a huge amount of sidewalk space we just got back if we don't have to have dedicated left turn lanes, things like that. And it's another important factor is it's just inexpensive for the town to maintain compared to a traffic light. We're just talking about some striping and some signs. So a lot of benefits, probably more that, the police department and other folks could weigh in on, but we we're able to demonstrate through that engineering study that this is an easy thing to change if we want as part of the master plan. And so we are making this recommendation. So this is a 3D rendering of the downtown if you're at that same intersection at the bottom. So that's 3rd Street at the bottom of the screen, Main Street headed north up the middle. And what we're showing here is just a vision or an idea for the future. And so Main Street itself, we're showing a truly flexible and unique street. And so what that is showing is flush curbs from building to building. And so you have no curb and gutter. The entire area is accessible. There's not a game of chutes and ladders and ramps everywhere. We can make it all very ADA very easily. It's providing on-street parking, and most importantly, it's providing very wide sidewalks that accommodate outdoor seating for different types of restaurants and bars and nightlife to move in, as well as coffee shops and other types of businesses that may also be able to use that wide sidewalk space, even if it's just pulling out racks of clothes and things that are on sale for the day because it's a nice spring day outside. And so these wide sidewalks are going to help businesses expand out into the street, draw more attention to themselves, and at the same time accommodate a lot more foot traffic as we think about some of the changes that we know are happening. We know growth is occurring now. Growth's going to continue, especially in Wendell. And your typical pattern in a downtown setting like this is going to be more people are going to start living downtown. You're going to have townhomes. There's already townhome developments that are coming in, multifamily apartments, mixed use. And so that's what we're showing on the periphery is these kinds of made-up buildings that could happen. Something like that could be what happens in the future as downtown becomes more dense. You replace surface parking lots and things like that with buildings that provide their own structured parking, provide people who live, work, play downtown. Very common trend, and we're seeing it elsewhere in other towns. Cary's the big example. They have 1,000 new apartment units that came online just this year within a block of their Academy Street downtown. And I know Cary's blown up, but you guys are, really aren't that far behind with where people are looking to live. So, and you guys are way more fun too, trust me. So this is Main Street on a typical day that we're showing. You see the mix of cars, people, trees, outdoor seating, all the things blended together in a safe way. This street would also allow really easy transition to a true festival street where you can have farmers markets, concert series, just whatever the town wants to program, just with a simple line of bollards. And so again, if the street's designed to be flush with no curb and gutter, it's really easy to transform it into different things overnight, honestly. It would also be easy to change its vehicular arrangement, the way parking is done, the way vehicles travel, just with simple striping exercises. Really the only fixed thing on here is the trees themselves, which, yes, you can move those too, but it's a lot harder. And there's a little bit of steps and walls that would be needed simply because buildings are at different heights from each other. But we're trying to make it really open and future-proof the design is the term we like to use. We don't want to have to come back 3 years from now and design this again. We want to really design for the next 20, 30, 40 years until maybe none of us use cars at all. We're just on hoverboards or whatever we're doing then. Speaking of that wide sidewalk we're creating, this image is really meant to show what is needed. And so to meet current federal guidelines for ADA, there's a 6-foot clear zone requirement. That means there has to be at least 6 foot clear of sidewalks, so no tables, no chairs, no bike racks, literally just clear pavement. The sidewalks on Main Street today, for example, are only 9 feet wide. And so if you put a table and chairs out there, you're already non-compliant from an ADA standpoint. We also want to create what we're calling the curbside zone, which is a place to put light poles, street trees, planters, things just allowing space for doors to swing open, for parents to set their stroller out as they're getting their kid out of the car seat. Just that flexible space right next to where cars like to park. And then the most important is that business frontage zone that we're calling it, and that's really just that flex space that allows any individual business to utilize it to serve their needs. A lot of the restaurant potential buildings downtown are really small, and so if a restaurant or cafe wants to open, outdoor seating could be essential for their business model. So we're really trying to create that 10-foot business frontage zone shown in this image that isn't there today. These are just some more rendered images of life on Main Street in the vision that we're presenting here tonight. Something else you'll notice is some more ornamental types of pavement. This can ultimately come down to cost decisions. This is a master plan document. It's not promising any specific material. We don't get that detailed yet, but the idea here is really to make the whole area feel more pedestrian and not like a road, especially if it's closed for a festival. We want it to feel like a really special place, but also day to day, this is going to help with traffic calming because vehicles are going to realize that they're entering a different type of space here, and they're going to naturally slow down and be more careful. So the change in pavement is very useful for lots of reasons beyond just the aesthetic qualities. That set of steps over there is an example of where we have building heights that are different from each other. So on Main Street, the east side is lower than the west side. The buildings are set up higher than the street on the west side. When you create a wide sidewalk space, you have a lot of room to deal with that grade change, such as steps like this where we would have ADA connections at either end and intermittently. Things like ramps and ADA connections take a lot of space up, and this creates the space that would be needed to do that, to make sure that all these buildings are remaining highly accessible without having to lower the building, which would be a big deal. This is an example of a farmer's market right on Main Street with it closed off and how it functions without having to do anything but put up a few bollards and set up some tents. Food trucks, things like that, which you guys are used to from Campen Road, how it functions today. And so, yes, that's me from a different time here. This is the next step is to present to you guys tonight. Just want to provide this presentation so that we can hear your comments, questions, feedback, and then we can chat more with staff about next steps, phasing ideas, funding ideas, things like that. So I think that's the overall master plan that is rotated. So just as an FYI, north is to the right, and so Main Street's headed left to right in this image. It just fit a little better that way, but not to throw you off too much. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we would love to hear your feedback, answer any questions you have, and then talk about next steps.
Okay, anything from the board?
Yeah. Oh, got some things.
Okay, start with Commissioner Lutz.
Okay. So I just was curious, kind of so far with public input sessions, planning board, kind of what have you gathered as far as thoughts, impressions already?
So I think overall, we've heard a lot of great feedback. People are excited. I think there was a lot of questions from all of the boards and the public that attended those meetings about phasing. Will this all happen at once? And our response has been no. One, we can't afford it. Two, it doesn't make sense. I think probably in our conversations with Withers, our staff recommendation would be phasing and to do some of the outer areas first. So for example, creating that additional parking, let's say on 2nd Street, so that when we do have to close down Main Street, we've created some nearby parking to help, alleviate some of the disruption. I have also said at a variety of meetings, this project, when we start any kind of construction, even before that, will probably be one of our largest communications efforts that we've ever done, because we need to communicate not only with business owners, property owners, tenants, residents, visitors, and so it'll be probably one of our biggest challenges in communication efforts that the town will ever do. And so we would love to be able to talk phasing when we sit down with the future CIP document, the budget this year, talk about how to break it up, what projects would be funded when. But I think our preference would be that we do the exterior areas first, create that additional parking, and then work on Main Street towards the end of our fiscal capabilities. And so, but we've heard a lot of great things from business owners throughout the area, from visitors. I think people are excited. There is a little bit of heartburn about making Main Street parallel, but our reason for that was really beneficial to have those much wider sidewalks. One of the things we do hear about redevelopment of downtown buildings for restaurants, which is probably the #1 thing we get questions about, the interior space is small. And so to put a commercial kitchen in and then only have room for a limited number of seating, that outdoor seating could play a very key role in a business's success or a restaurant's success. When we're talking 22-foot wide sidewalks, having 1 or 2 tables is minimal compared to what we could have with those really wide sidewalks. And so trying to implement the plans, but also what we're hearing from residents, I think we've done a really solid effort. Yes, we will lose some spots on Main Street, but we could create a lot more spots throughout the district and the atmosphere of what 22-foot wide sidewalks do. I mean, people are clamoring for outdoor seating. I can tell you, I've gone to many places and sat really close to exhaust pipes on cars just to sit outside, and this would create a really, with the parallel spots, the headlights of the car or the exhaust is not right at your table. So it's a very thoughtful design of those outdoor dining areas. But we've heard overall a lot of great things. But there are some questions about parking, about how it would get done in disruptions, or probably some of the key questions.
So just to kind of go off that with the parking questions, I know you said you were increasing it by 193 spaces. Is that correct?
Roughly.
So, roughly, yeah, sure. So I'm just curious, because and I'm looking at this document we have in front of us here. Obviously, I imagine 3rd Street is probably only so much we can do on 3rd Street, just especially on that, I guess the bottom part of the picture here we're looking at, with just the elevation changes. I look at Main Street, I agree, I mean, Main Street itself with the angled spaces, I know it allows for more parking, but when I go to work, I can't get down Main Street, it smells is coming. I've got to stop almost, so it almost comes a one-way street, because cars don't pull all the way in, or cars are just getting larger. But I'm really curious to where the parking is coming from with the extra spaces, because Depot, Camden, 3rd Street, Cypress, it looks the same. Pine looks roughly the same, at least except for the part in front of the police station. Are we gaining that much just with 2nd Street and Pine Street to make up the difference?
So of that number that was provided, about 100 of it was the surface parking lots. And so we're talking about 93 roughly on-street parking spaces. And a lot of those are coming from 2nd. There's a lot more on Pine. Also, we took the surveyed striping from West Campen and West Depot and re-striped it at a perpendicular instead of angled, and we're gaining 35 spaces actually just in that area. And so we just found a more efficient way to do it in the same space. And so it's kind of all over. With that being said, there's a couple areas, for example, Cypress Street, the existing parallel parking is only 17 feet long, and a standard is 22 feet long. And so we are bringing everything up to standard, which might lose a space here and there. But even with that, we're still gaining back 90-ish on-street parking spaces.
Okay. I've discussed this before, but as far as parking monitoring, to me, we have a 2-hour parking, in air quotes, that's not enforced for many reasons. But with this plan, if that's something we wanted to institute, do we have, are there any ways that are being planned for now that would allow parking monitoring to be easier?
I think, again, we're building the framework here for a flexible design, and so the monitoring is going to come down to the signage and implementation, obviously. But one thing we always try to create is, for example, on part of Main Street, you have a number of businesses that do not have a back door. And so if they need to have a loading type use, it's going to come in from the front. And so a classic example of how you deal with that is you have loading zones where you can park at these hours, and these hours you better be out of there because the business owner has a truck coming. And so sometimes it's a specific plan that has to be in place for a specific type of business. Beyond that, we do try to encourage, shorter term parking right at front doors so that, employees aren't parking there all day where the customers probably should be parking. And then ultimately, any signage, I guess, has to have some teeth, right? So if it's becoming a problem, some form of of ticketing or incentive would ultimately probably be needed.
I mean, and
If I can add one thing on that. There's, technology allows for some efficiencies in enforcement. One thing I've looked at in the past is about the size of a hockey puck, embedded in the parking spaces. So if you're scraping everything and putting down the parking spaces again, you can embed parking monitors. It identifies when there's a vehicle above it. If a board wants to enforce more, it allows for our parking enforcement and parking concierge to know how long a space has been covered by a particular vehicle. So it gets away from chalking tires and lets our officers know exactly when to go where. The other thing is from a parking benefit to the public in that is it lets you know where there's open parking spaces. So if you're going downtown, you can go exactly to where an open parking space is. So when we get to construction drawings, if the board wants more enforcement or more of a concierge type program, those kinds of technologies are something that we can look at to implement with that.
that sounds wonderful, because, you know, as much as I like that idea, I know if we're adding more staff time and resources, that's a different ballgame. And so anything where we can make things more efficient for them now would be a plan. And certainly, I think about if, you know, all the Main Street businesses, if we know we're losing parking in front of our place, having some way of making sure that we can at least allow the ability to cycle people through faster is a big benefit. You mentioned this earlier, Brian, and I've said this before too. As someone who's on Main Street during the day and looking at my windows, like I can tell you every given day the 8 cars are parking in my building, and they're not customers or patients of mine; they're other business owners. So if we take this step, you know, as a town, or we take this step as a town, I think the communication is going to have to be a lot. Yes, the public, but other business owners and to those employees, because, and it comes from the employer down, because if I just allow my staff to go park wherever they want to, they'll go park in front of, you know, Larry's Taylor, they may go park in front of Ashendale, these different places close by, and that is no good for them either. It just creates this about me personality. And so it's going to be, as much as teaching citizens you may have to walk a block to get somewhere, but it's also going to be making sure that employees know, hey, I made the park in the behind Grill Billy's in the parking right lot and walk a block over. And that's going to be tough, because I think a lot of people are used to what they're doing, and it's just going to take education. It's going to take a little bit of a buy-in from the businesses to really embrace it. I do think it's needed. I do think it's a good plan overall, but it's going to take a strong buy-in for everybody to kind of see what we're trying to do here. So that's my biggest concern, my biggest kind of thing that I'll probably hear again as we go along the process. So I'll be quiet for the day.
And one other thing that we've done in other towns is the surface parked lots. Oftentimes you want to incentivize those, so strong signage leading people to those, and then perhaps those you can park for free all day. Whereas on street, it's metered or it's a short term. And that way you're trying to incentivize use of those surface parking lots where we're just getting the cars, like you said. If you imagine one at all 4 corners someday, then everybody's just really a block away from the surface lot. So.
And I'm sorry, I have one more thing too. Just with the width of Main Street, was there any thought of, or looking at other ideas of making part parallel, part angled? Was there much discussion on that? And then just kind of how was that discussion?
We did have different iterations that looked just like that. In fact, right now, this graphic is a little bit out of date. There's actually some angled still proposed on the left end of Main Street. The beauty of the flush pavement is that you could honestly modify it anytime you want. It's the same area. It can park either way. We're showing it kind of striped with paver patterns for parallel, but you're not stuck with that, with how it would be physically constructed. But ultimately, we felt like the mix of angled, it looked a little bit just cranky and fussy, and we just wanted to make it really simplified and create just a true sense of place for Main Street, because we are putting angled pretty much everywhere else.
Yeah, and I think also to pick who gets the 22-foot sidewalk and who gets maybe a 10-foot wide sidewalk creates some challenges from a business owner standpoint. And so if everyone pretty much has the same space out front, it's equal. And so if you also don't want to create a block that's like, hey, I wanted to put a restaurant there, but I want more outdoor space. And you've created some challenges for a block or two that the other side of the street doesn't have. And so you don't want to create, so for us, we wanted to be fair in that both sides got that wide sidewalk on both sides of the main street.
How much parking did you add on Second Street, like one angle down one side?
Commissioner White?
Yeah. See what Paul said.
So,
I'm trying to answer what he's looking at. If you went, you're parking on Second Street, and you put it at an angle and only on one side, and you create a tremendous amount of parking by where he is and on those two blocks.
Yeah, we're adding about
That one's spoken to
40.
that.
There's about 40 added on Second Street.
Yeah, just zoom in on the Main Street portion a little bit. I do have some questions, curiosity, I guess, a little bit about how the, and you've described it with the right term, but like the same, no curbs, whatever the right phrase was there. I mean, something that I'll say again when we get later on in design, the design portion of this. I don't love pavers on a street. I don't like them. I think stamped concrete, and there's lots of other ways to accomplish kind of what you're trying to get at. I get the point, but I think when you put bricks on a street, they end up looking ratty really quickly if you don't do it really, really, really well. And I'm sure we're going to do everything really, really, really well. But anyway, you'll hear about that again from me in the future. But can you talk a little bit about, I guess I'm trying to think about standing on a sidewalk or especially sitting on a sidewalk at a table and there being no curb or anything. Somehow it seems like that maybe makes it feel a little bit less pedestrian friendly. And I think I understand where it's going, but can you just talk about the logic there and whether that's like definitely the best practice or the direction that folks are going in these kind of projects, or if that's something that's can go either way, whether or not you have a curb?
So it's kind of, there's a lot of factors going on here, and it really all starts with that traffic calming component and that making it feel like a different type of space factor. And so what this is known as is a tabletop, and so to get up to that flush curb setting, you're actually going up at the intersection of a ramp, so to speak. And so you immediately feel as a driver that you're entering a space that's no longer really a road. You're slowing down. You're seeing a lot of things on your periphery, like street trees and light poles and these planters you see here. And so there's a lot of behavioral design elements that just change how a vehicle driver would behave. And then these are also physical barriers where you use things like bollards, planters, the light poles, the street trees, to really create that sense of enclosure and separation between those two spaces. And then the parked cars themselves are honestly the best bollard there is. And so if you're sitting in a downtown setting like this, and there's parked cars behind some planters, you're pretty well buffered from actual moving vehicles. And it's definitely been done in the States. It's also a very popular design out of Europe, honestly. And so where you see those European streets lined with cafes and things like that. But the best thing is just to change how people behave when they're behind the wheel through design.
Appreciate all the concepts, and I'm sure that in a lot of ways they work in practice. I do think that my initial thought is maybe I don't love flush streets with sidewalks. I think this is the right term. But just Brian, Mark, going forward, if y'all could find, and all of you, but if y'all could find some examples of where some products like this exist, I'd love to just go.
I apologize. They actually sent me one over the weekend that West Palm Beach, Florida recently installed.
That's too
I
far.
was like,
You're gonna send me to Florida?
Little bit closer.
Florida's look kind of,
Yes, we were
Florida
going
can
to.
look kind of strange.
That's too far for us to drive.
During a meeting night? No.
So one thing also on the flush is it takes away trip hazards and accessibility. I know for a social district, that is a ongoing concern with insurance liability and having that ability to move.
So one of the reasons we did discuss the examples of West Palm Beach, because it was in social media recently, it looked very Florida. And so we did not want to present those images and people think we wanted palm trees. or the color of the materials they used was very like black and gray, and just didn't have that North Carolina Wendell kind of feel to it. So we also didn't want to have images out there for people to say, that's what they want it to look like, and that's ugly. And so we would much rather keep it to potential, some of these sketches that Withers has done. It does look unique. I mean, I liked their use of the planters, their outdoor seating looked really nice. There are some examples, I think, in the Pacific Northwest too, if you want to go maybe Portland, Seattle area, Commissioner Eatman.
Maybe if you could start with some lists, and I'll get on Google Street View.
We can
and
do
I'll
that.
go from there.
We can find you a few other closer locations.
Where does the water runoff go?
So, and what we're gonna do next, as a
I'm
final
jumping ahead,
deliverable
I'm
to this
sorry.
is early engineering of
Okay.
this. Typically, in this case, you would have, instead of a crowned road, you'd have either an inverted swale, which means that you're pitching all the water to the middle and catching it, or you would have two versions of that roughly along where the curb line would have been. And so you're making sure that water is running away from buildings is the main thing.
So would someone in a wheelchair still be able to go right across that swale, or would they still need to go?
Yeah, it would be very subtle so that
Okay.
it wouldn't be this pronounced.
Okay.
Yeah. And, you know, if there's drain inlets, things like that, you would use ADA compliant grates with
Okay.
smaller perforations. But that is something that we will do as part of this, is that early engineering look at how stormwater as a whole is managed.
Yeah, one more that is almost the opposite of what I was just talking about. But if you can go down to the next block, there was a really good cross-section of the stairs that were in the middle of the west side. Yeah. This is like the one, I shouldn't say the one thing. Overall, I think I said this to begin with, I really like this concept. Zooming in on a few parts that I have the most questions about. I wish there was a way to figure out how to level this whole thing. But I guess maybe my only question at this point, the specific question I have, is the portion that's kind of shown in the distance here where there's a wall that's in place. I recognize that just dealing with that elevation change is something that is going to be a reality of this project. I guess one question, is there any way to get rid of it? Like maybe that's the craziest version of just the incline can't work, and there's not a way with leveling and grading to make this a flat street. But can you talk a little bit about maybe the ADA impacts of a wall or something like that, just to think about how that would work in practice?
So in that area specifically, that's where basically the buildings are the highest above the road, and that's why we decided to just turn it into essentially like a seat wall that allows for, you know, a wide sidewalk, and there is ADA on the other end where you get to the intersection. You know, it could continue as the steps. You would just have to have some more steps, which eats into the sidewalk. We also played with some iterations where it just becomes like a planter or something like that, just to soften the fact that there is such a big grade change. And, you know, that's still a viable option too. But as far as, you know, making it leveled, really the only way would be to do something with the building. Internal ramping, internal steps, something like that instead of external. Or rebuild the building, right? That's obviously could happen with some of these in the future, you know, infill projects. Anything's possible, but with what we have to work with today, we kind of made a hybrid between the steps and then like a seat wall type feature.
With the big, long swath of steps there, would there be, I know you'd like the clean look, but would there be a handrail occasionally there? I would
there
hate for
would.
someone who needed a handrail to have to walk the whole way to the end.
For
or-
sure. So
Okay.
it would all meet, there's federal guidelines for ADA accessibility called PROAG, which applies to all public right-of-ways, and so all of those would be met. We just, for the rendering purpose, you know, didn't put the
I just didn't
handrail
want
in.
people to have, you know, they might not need the ramp, but they still
Sure.
might need to, okay,
Mhm.
thank you. All right, are y'all done this end? Jay, did you have anything?
I was just gonna, I appreciate the work you put into it. And I appreciate that it sounds like the group that got it to this point decided on the one-way street issue for us. And also, it appears got some consensus around the parking on Main Street. And those were certainly the two areas that I had looked at a lot. So So I appreciate y'all's work on that, and I know building consensus isn't easy, but I appreciate the effort that's been made.
Sure, thank you.
Commissioner Honeycutt, Commissioner Deloach, do y'all have anything you want to ask?
Go ahead, and then I'll weigh in, however you want to do it.
Thank you, sir. Touching on a couple things,
That from a what we want downtown to be standpoint, certainly we could have angled parking. Either parallel or angled, we have challenges with people not knowing how to use either option with their vehicle. There are people who say they love angled parking, but their truck sits 3 or 4 feet out into the street and causes issues. Or they pull way forward in and damage our signs and curb. Parallel is a challenge from people as well. So whatever option we choose, there are challenges with people parking. 2, if we want to truly create the downtown that we've laid out in documents, we as staff feel that those parallel spots give us those 22-foot wide sidewalks to create much more of a destination in different, I will say, other than maybe parts of downtown Raleigh, there is no downtown in Wake County that has 22-foot wide sidewalks for outdoor dining. When you look at the success of Apex, they are hampered by very little right-of-way in places in front of their businesses. So I think for us, the design, we could have either parking option, but the parallel gives us that exterior outdoor space that we heard nonstop that people want. And also, I think, helps us with the challenge of creating more restaurants downtown. When you have, and I wish there were some building owners here, when we have met with potential people using that space, when they lay it out and put a commercial kitchen in and inside only seats 10 or 12 people, it's very difficult for someone to invest a lot of money in renovating a building with very little seating. And so I think instead of having 1 or 2 outdoor tables, the potential would be you may have more outdoor tables than indoor tables for some of the spaces, which could create a very much more successful atmosphere for the business owner and the town of what we're trying to create in downtown. So either, we could create a streetscape with either parking. The parallel on those few blocks of Main Street give us a really unique destination in outdoor space that we feel residents want and sets us apart from others when it's completed.
Commissioner, I would just go back to what the landscape architect mentioned on the fire code requires a wider street for one-way, so parallel and one-way street doesn't necessarily gain you anything. It's just more problematic to safe traffic movement.
That's what I was going to ask is, just so for the record, we know what the trade-off is. And I recall and appreciate the fire requirement.
Yeah.
Next question. And I guess the communication is going to be the key. I've always said that a picture's worth 1,000 words and a video's worth 1,000 pictures. It'd be nice that as we do these things, we sort of have the greatest communication effort ever seen in Wendell. And not my place to tell you what that is, but I think certainly I think you hit on it, and that was my first concern, so that the world, Wendell knows what's going to happen, and they get the process.
If I can add on communications, in a past jurisdiction that I worked in, there was a 52-block streetscape replacement over multiple phases. A communications consulting firm is hired specifically for the project to act as a liaison between the town, the business owners, the contractor, all the subs. You hire a communications professional firm to handle this that's experienced with this kind of work. The business owners deserve that. They coordinate everything from a construction standpoint. There's still mess ups, but it's a lot less. I mean, you have a lot fewer slip ups than what other people who try to do it without a dedicated communications firm. That's my experience in dealing with projects like this. Bring in the specialized communication.
And Wendell will have that opportunity?
If it's funded by a future board to do that in the phases, absolutely. That would be my staff recommendation.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Last question. or last statement, I guess, you're aware of what the Hippocratic Oath is?
Yes,
Do you know the subtext of it?
I'm not a doctor, but I know the,
But you know, do no harm?
yes, sir.
Parking, do no harm. So in your plan, in your phase, make sure we gain before we lose.
That's right. That's
Thank you.
exactly what we're recommending.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm a renderings guy, so just bear with me a little bit here. I know these are probably not to exact scale. I get that. This picture's perfect for me, because this is what I envision. I understand the parking, what we lose when we go with the bollards. I think you guys have probably heard me say, I'm team bollards, and I am in favor. Again, don't know how it looks in practice, but I'm the guy that's probably in favor of, let's close it off Friday AM to Sunday evening, when it's nice outside, whatever months that may be. That might not be a popular opinion. 22 feet on this side. Is that approximately from the lamp post from, and why I ask that is because on that side, obviously, we talk about the need for outdoor seating. If we're essentially cutting that in half with stairs, how do we determine who gets more sidewalk than someone else? But anyway, that's first, just question mark when I look at this long enough.
Yep, so the parallel parking space itself is 8 feet wide, and so the 22 feet would be roughly measured from the edge of the brick paver hatch, or
Okay.
stamped concrete, that you see there, where it goes from that red to tan. And so beyond that, it's not exact because the building architecture kind of undulates a little bit, depending on which building it is. But it's roughly that tan-colored material you see. And
Okay.
so, you know, where those steps occur, you know, we really just want to make sure that we have that 6-foot clear zone accommodated at top and bottom at a minimum, which we know we have plenty of room for that. And so we could choose to make it wider at the top of the stairs to accommodate more outdoor seating, for example. In this case, the guy who did the rendering is sitting here, but I'm not going to put him on the spot. It is wider at the top of the stairs. I just don't know the
Yeah,
exact dimension.
and that's fine. I'm not, just an observation. And then that goes into, on the other one, we had planters showing with cars parking, which doesn't appear on the other one, which again is fine. And I know that we've taken into consideration, you know, we talk about cars and parking and getting strollers out and that kind of thing. You know, the striping, again, I'm making assumptions here, but I assume the striping is such that we're not banging doors on bollards, planters, lamp
Correct.
posts.
Yeah,
So,
in a CD set of documents, we would design the exact striping and everything, and you know, the stripe occurs at the same place that a light pole or a tree occurs, and that way the door swing never hits a tree or a light pole.
Okay.
Part of that other rendering, the reason there's no planters shown at the bottom of the steps is actually intentional. We're trying to, if you notice there's no planters, we're trying to demonstrate that when the bollards come up, everything out on this area is flexible and the town can move and rearrange. So if it becomes a festival street for an entire weekend, the planters maybe roll around and move somewhere else so that you have this big open space. And so we're trying to just show like, hey, this is a very flexible design that the town can modify overnight to meet a given need. If you imagine retractable bollards that are in a sleeve in the ground, you know, those same bollards at the end of the street day to day could reside along that flush curb line, and then you just pick them up out of that hole, which has a self-closing cap, and you drop them into the hole in the street. So one bollard, 2 holes. You have somewhere to store the bollard automatically built into the design. Plus you have some more bollards between the cars and the seating when it's actually being used as a street. So just things like that, we're really trying to think about Public Works and the folks who are going to manage this space and make their lives easier. So.
I don't see them scoffing over there, so. How many spaces, and again, approximate, how many spaces do we give up if we go just 3rd Street to 4th, shutting off Main Street, like we see here?
Like if you just close it completely, no cars parked?
I'm saying if we put the bollards up for an extended period of time, how many parking spaces are we giving up then?
From 3rd to 4th?
Correct. because again, I'll say it again. I've had the same questions about, how we should park, one-way, two-way, shut it off altogether.
Appreciate it. We will bring back the full streetscape master. Appreciate it. We will bring back the full streetscape master plan, full document to you at a future meeting for adoption. And so then projects through phasing, through financial estimates, through CIP and budget, and start, working through those and look forward to your input on the phasing and the CIP projects as well.
Can I ask one more question? Madam Mayor, I apologize, I forgot this, because you alluded to it, but I forgot to follow up. How much pushback have you gotten once you've laid out this plan from stakeholders?
I think I would say very minimal. There's been a lot of support for like, hey, this is a really good, we know you listened, you talked to a lot of people, you went through a lot of meetings, a lot of, surveys. I think there is just a few concerns about making Main Street parallel from the angled. We have heard no pushback on Second Street, Pine Street, all of those. I mean, those are areas people will park in when there's big events, but there's no striping, there's no sidewalks, there's no ADA ramps. And so I think what we have heard is full steam ahead on pretty much all of this. Just mostly questions about timing and will it all happen at once? How will I know when you get ready to start? And all of that, I mean, our next steps would be identify phasing, identify funds for this next fiscal year to start construction drawings of a phase or two, and then move forward. So construction is not happening within the next year at this point. By the time we go through budget, CIP, and start the fiscal year and start construction drawing design, which I would think is going to take the first few, especially we want a lot of involvement from staff. We're going to need to coordinate with our utility partner, Raleigh, also Duke Energy, and all the utility providers, whether it's natural gas, Duke Energy, as I said, Raleigh Water, Sewer. I mean, it is not just going to slap some pavement down and call it a renovated streetscape. It is full construction of our utilities, streetlights, landscaping, and everything. So it will be a process, and we'll probably go over stuff, I think, at probably the budget retreat. I don't want to commit too much, but Mark's giving me the look. But I mean, we certainly will be ready to talk phasing and projects with you all and staff.
One more question real quick, and I know I'm jumping ahead, but when the time arrives, and it's a ways away, we would make it so that people could access the businesses on Main Street or whatever street. So wherever we're working, we would still be able to accommodate foot traffic to get to you.
Yes, and we also have to accommodate events that are held throughout the year. We know when they are, and so it very much like any large construction project, holidays, events, school traffic, all kinds of things go into those construction schedules of major projects. And so those are, Harvest Festival just doesn't happen in one day and everything's back to normal. We have to probably take a pause on construction during a time, make sure everything's safe, make sure everything is secure and sealed, and plan. A lot of planning and communication goes into whatever projects we do. So, yep,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
All right, thank y'all very much. Item 6B is the fiscal year 2025 budget ordinance amendment number 3. Mr. Collins?
Garrett sends his regards as he wraps up some healing. Right now, he's been a little under the weather. This is our third budget amendment of the year. As you know, our auditors and best practice is not just to do one a year, it's to come back regularly as sufficient work dictates so that our accounts remain up to date with revenues and expenditures. I believe Garrett in his report laid out fairly clearly about where incomes are performing a little higher and expenses a little lower, and that allowed for us to look at some items. One of the larger ticket items is in Public Works. It's a bucket truck. You may recall that was in last year's budget, but we weren't able to deliver on that piece of equipment. So we held an order in this year open, thinking if it came in the second half of the year, we'd find the funds. And so that accounting is happening here. Sales tax is really outperforming expectations for us this year. Population is part of that formula for us, and that's outpacing a statewide trend in that revenue for us right now, which affords us an opportunity with that. Happy to answer any specific questions you may have on this item.
All right, any questions from the board? Motion?
Madam Mayor, I move we adopt amendment number 3 of the 2025 budget ordinance.
All right, we have a motion to adopt amendment number 3 of the 2025 budget ordinance. Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, item 6C is approve the contract with Cultural Planning Group for the Town of Wendell Public Art Plan. Mr. Coates.
Good evening, Mayor and board members. Let me go through. So the next item is for you to approve the contract for Cultural Planning Group to assist the town of Wendell in finalizing the public art plan that was started this last fiscal year. Cultural Planning Group is under contract with Wake County and United Arts Council to do a countywide cultural resource plan, art plan. And so, as part of their process, we have met with them quite a few times on different events for the East and in the region. And they are offering to provide with us, overall review of our draft, which we have a lot of great things in it. We want to make sure that we're doing everything to meet expectations, to do them in a way that provides the town with guidance when we have a residents and artists program, making sure that we're following guidelines on how we select those artists and programs. And so the item before you tonight is a contract fee of roughly almost $24,000 for Cultural Planning Group to work and assist the town on finishing up the public art plan. We've met with their staff. We're very excited to hopefully move forward with them. As part of their contract, they'll help us develop any new ordinances to help us implement the plan, updates to any existing, and create those comprehensive policies and procedures for us. We have done community engagement. We know there's a lot of support for art in the community, whether it's live music, more murals, to art installations. And so I think they've looked at our draft plan. We've got a lot of great things, and for them it's not a lot of work, but they would love to make sure we have those policies and procedures in place. And I can field any questions that you do have.
Anything from the board? Any questions?
Oh, just quickly, the funds would come out of the existing planning fiscal year 2025 budget.
Okay.
I was just going to say, I really appreciate I think this is the interjurisdictional coordination that we talk about a whole lot. And I think it makes a ton of sense to coordinate with United Arts Council and not try to build a wheel out here on our own. And I anticipate that sort of coordination at this point in the process has a really decent likelihood of leading to us becoming sort of the beneficiary of the countywide arts funding within Eastern Wake County. And I just appreciate y'all figuring out how to build this relationship and look forward to continuing to expand in the future.
Madam Mayor, I move we approve the contract with Cultural Planning Group for the Town of Wendell Public Art Plan.
So we have a motion to approve the Cultural Planning Group to assist with the Town of Wendell in finalizing public art plan. Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor? Anyone opposed? All right. Item 6D is the Downtown Improvement Grant for 45 North Main. Mr. Garner.
Good evening. Continuing in the downtown investment trend, have a couple downtown improvement grant applications for your consideration. Cat Daddy's Bottle Shop has submitted a downtown improvement grant application for their business at 45 North Main Street. You may remember them from the special use permit hearing. The proposed work includes cleaning, repainting of the exterior facade as it exists today, the replacement of metal trim, replacement of 3 windows, and the replacement of the 4th Street side door. Per the downtown improvement grant policy, the project is eligible for a Tier 2 grant, which is up to $5,000 or half of the total project cost, whichever is cheaper. For the replacement of doors and windows and exterior painting, they score in that tier. The total relevant project costs for this project are $7,054.05, which makes the requested grant amount half of that, or $3,527.02. For those who keep score, that's not exactly half, but if you round up, it's 50.01% of the total project cost. And at the January 29th meeting of the Downtown Development Committee, they voted unanimously to recommend approval of the Downtown Improvement Grant. Just as a refresher, on the left, you can see the location, formerly the dog groomer, and that is the corner of looking at it from Main Street and looking at it from the side on 4th Street. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about the grant or the grant process. The applicant is also here.
Any questions from the board?
Matt, where does the money for this come from?
The downtown improvement grant money is in the economic development part of the budget. I believe there's $100,000 in that budget.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Certainly excited about this project. Looking forward to another downtown business owner, and I move we approve the downtown improvement grant for 45 North Main Street.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve the Downtown Improvement Grant for 45 North Main Street. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Quickly, just because, Matt, you pointed it out, and I do think that this is just slightly less than 50%. If my back of the napkin math works, I wish we could find a way to give them the half of a cent that's left, but that's all.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. Item 6C is a downtown improvement grant for 12 South Pine Street.
Thank you. Parish Investments LLC has again submitted for a downtown improvement grant at their location at 12 South Pine Street, which was formerly the site of Helping Hands as well as a barber shop. The proposed work includes the removal of 2 existing windows on the 2nd Street side of the building and being replaced with 2 6-foot by 7-foot glass doors, along with the necessary masonry work for the cutting and the removal and the repair of masonry once the doors are in. The project provides the building with improved access to the side yard, or notably the large outdoor area along 2nd Street, and will eventually provide ADA accessible entrances for whoever the future tenant of the building is. Along with the exterior work, they are independently improving the interior by upgrading the bathrooms to be ADA accessible, as well as have multiple entrances and stalls to comply with potential building codes for higher occupancy projects than currently exist now. Again, this project qualifies for a Tier 2 grant based on the repair and replacement of windows and doors with a maximum grant amount of $5,000 or 50% of the total project cost, whichever is lower. The relevant project cost, in this case is $16,849. The math is significantly easier this time. And so the requested grant amount is $5,000. And again, at their January 29th meeting, the Downtown Development Committee unanimously recommended approval of this grant. And again, the location is there on the corner of 2nd and Pine Street. The applicant provided me with this rendering or drawing of the proposed work. You can see, if you look at the building from the 2nd Street side, those 2 existing windows as well as what it will look like in the future. Happy to answer any questions. I do not believe the applicant is here.
Okay, any questions from the board?
Matt, are they still doing work on this building?
Yes, sir.
Is it mainly the interior part they're doing now?
Yes, sir.
So this is my only little thing about it, I'm not gonna say anything, because maybe they're still part of the process, but based on the pictures they sent us, there's a lot of just like clutter and junk around there, like, I would have recommended that just if we're going to do a grant to improve the outfit of the building, then let's make sure that part's, of course, I know they're doing construction, so that's fine, but just, that's my only recommendation, just housekeeping.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, and to confirm, the side that we have the picture of is the bottom here, so we are replacing those windows with windows, doors.
Yes, sir. Yeah, and there are more pictures in your packet as well.
And I agree, Dr. Lewis. Commissioner.
All right.
I'd encourage the applicant to make sure that Chief Slaughter gets the current window, or at least the sign that's in the current window that was in our packet. There's a really nice directive of Wendell's Finest being able to come assist you there if needed. You should take a look at it in your packet. But outside of that, I've got no other recommendations. And Madam Mayor, I'd make a motion that we approve the downtown improvement grant for 12 South Pine Street.
All right, thank you. We have a motion to approve the downtown improvement grant for 12 South Main Street. Is there any discussion on the motion? All right, all in favor? Did I say the wrong street? Oh, Pine, sorry. All right, so all in favor of Pine Street?
Aye.
Aye.
Right, is anyone opposed? Cypress is my address, I think. Did I say Maine? Okay. Item 6F is a decision to approve rankings and authorize the town manager to negotiate a contract for the request for qualification number 202507 for design services for the Main Street Park project.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Commissioners. Staff issued RFQ 2025-07 for professional design services for the Main Street Park project. We requested responses by 2 p.m. on January the 6th, 2025. The town did receive 6 responses to the RFQ by the deadline. Staff reviewed submissions and ranked the responses based on the submittal request in the RFQ document, which was in your packet. Excuse me. Following the scoring process, staff interviewed the top 3 firms and rate the submissions in the following order: Surface, Withers, Ravenel, and Timmons. Upon approval, staff will negotiate design build services and return the agreed contract to the board for approval. The town has planned for $1.5 million for the design, engineering, and construction of this project in the capital improvement plan. Funding sources are fund balance appropriation, sales tax revenue. The town also has recently submitted for Wake County Community Investment Partnership Program in the amount of $250,000 to help fund this project.
Any questions from the board?
Madam Mayor, I move we accept the rankings of the RFQ and authorize the town manager to negotiate a contract professional design services for the Main Street Park project.
All right, thank you. We have a motion to accept the rankings for the RFQ and to authorize the town manager to negotiate a contract for professional design services for the Main Street Park project.
Can we clarify in the motion that includes the manager to sign, just to be clear that it's not coming back? If it's,
To negotiate and sign?
please.
Okay. So the motion is to accept the rankings of the RFQ and to authorize the town manager to negotiate and sign a contract for professional design services for the Main Street Park project. Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Moving to our other business, we have one tonight, the Wendell Volunteer Fire Department Board of Directors. Commissioner Joyner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Fire Department Board of Directors met last Thursday, and I was just looking for the call totals, but Wendell has 3, as y'all are all aware, 3 fire stations. Station 1 has and always has been the leading call volume station. This year, for the first time, Station 3 at Wendell Falls eclipsed Station 2, which is at Bethany Church. We discussed potential for a relocation of a station, as well as the continuing ordering process of new fire trucks. And that's all, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. We'll stay with you and go into our comments.
Nothing tonight, Madam Mayor.
All right, Commissioner Lutz.
Nothing tonight, ma'am.
Commissioner Eatman.
Nothing tonight.
Commissioner Honeycutt.
No, ma'am, thank you.
Commissioner Deloach.
I just want to add one comment if I can, Madam Mayor. Well, first of all, if Planning Director Coach seemed extra chippy tonight, it's because his Eagles won, so congratulations on that. And then I'm going to do the old man thing when it comes to parking. And we talk about all the time, if we have any problems and they relate to parking, we tend to say that they are good problems because we have a parking problem. But I will tell you from a personal perspective, going back in the 1900s, as my kids like to say, I held a handful of jobs in retail, and I was essentially threatened by my employer to park as far as possible away from our place of business to allow parking for customers. So I know we've talked a little bit about enforcement and, you know, how many spots we have and what's staying and what's going and what we're adding and where we're adding them. But I think at the end of the day, let's encourage folks to, you know, focus on what's important, and that's people coming to town. They're coming here to do business with us and spend time in our town and enjoy our town and have the convenient parking that is available in a lot of spaces. So I would encourage you, if you own a business, and I'm not saying you threaten your employees, but I would strongly encourage them to be the ones that make the longer trip to work. So that's all, Madam Mayor.
All right, thank you. I recently attended the mid-year graduation at Eastway High School. I go every year, and the auditorium was packed this year, more than normal, standing room only. I feel like if the fire marshal had come in, we would have been in trouble because it was jam-packed. I wanted to congratulate all the graduates. These are special young men and women. They are tenacious. They have either worked really hard to graduate early, or they have been met with some hurdle that caused them to need to take another semester, but they didn't quit, and they hung in there, and they graduated a little bit late. So I admire both groups of people and wish them well. I know they're going to do great things for Wendell, and congratulations to them and their parents and families, and they were all very, very proud. It was a great night. So that's all I have. Do we have a motion to go into closed session?
Madam Mayor, I move the board go into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143.